Hi, welcome everyone. My name is Matthew Travers. And so this presentation, majority of it's about copyright issues. However, there is some talk about cyberbullying that we'll get to in a little bit. So obviously labeled it copyright because majority of the content is based around that. And so the first section is legal issues, and this deals with fair use in Creative Commons. Uh, Fair use, pretty straightforward as far as like its name. It's Are you using the content or the material that you gathered from the internet or wherever fairly so that it doesn't essentially say that you took it from somebody and gave yourself the credit. And Creative Commons, it's an organization that I'll get into in a little bit. They actually have several different websites that pertain to different aspects of what they're trying to achieve, so we'll get to that in a little bit. So, fair use. And according to Stim, who is a lawyer, I'm not going to actually click on his link, but I left it there in case you wanted to take a look at it. Essentially, what he described it as is it's content used in limit, and it is transformative for specific purposes without permission from the owner, and that would be considered fair use. So, for example, if I were to take a clip from a movie and show it to the students, I don't have to say the movie company that it's from. It's just a little section, and then we can discuss it, and that's an educational purpose. So that would be deemed totally valid. You don't have to actually cite the source. Most teachers will at least say the movie name, where it's from. You know what I mean? They wouldn't just be like, "All right, here's a clip." They would at least describe what where the movie came from, its context, all that good stuff. So the next one, actually take you guys to the website. And so I like this one because it kind of bullet points specific sections, as you can see, copyright law, and it goes into little bullet points about each one. And then if you scroll down a little bit more, it actually has a fair use section, so that's the one I'm going to stop at for the moment. And purpose, nature of work, sustainability, and impact on potential market are really the key aspects of fair use. Purpose refers to the purpose for the infringement. So it's usually like, why were you using the content and were you using it correctly? Nature of work centers on the degree of creativity involved in the original creation. So the more creative a specific thing is, the more likely that if you try to copy it in some form, you may get in trouble for. And a common example of this, I don't know if any of you guys remember what happened with Facebook. There's actually a movie called The Social Network that kind of sums it up. Essentially, um, Mark Zuckerberg steals the idea and then leads on other people, essentially creating the same website as Facebook. But this was before Mark Zuckerberg even came up with the idea, and then he kind of branched off from it and created his own, and then it caused a whole bunch of legal issues. Sustainability of portion refers to how much of the work is infringed. So obviously, if it's only a section, you're usually going to be okay. But if you copy the entire thing, then you might get into a little bit of some trouble. So it just depends. And impact on the potential market. So this is essentially saying if you're going to use this to profit from it, obviously the owner of the content should be the one that would be profiting, not you. So control the access and the use of the tools. So essentially that means the teacher themselves are the ones who are giving the access to the students, and they're in control of what the students are going to use and see. Obviously the two aspects that we're focusing on for educational purposes, there's a lot of different fair use policies, but obviously for teachers and for students, those are the two main groups for the educational purposes. So as I mentioned earlier, Creative Commons has a bunch of different websites. There's Creative Commons USA, which is the one that I have here. There's also just the regular Creative Commons website, and they have a few other ones as well. They're a nonprofit organization, essentially trying to give everyone a chance to view media and content in different ways without having to go through a bunch of issues with not being able to use the content. It provides current guidelines, which is obviously extremely beneficial. There's a bunch of different articles about this stuff. And there's a cool little neat feature where you guys can actually ask experts advice. There's a little section you click on it where it says questions, and I'll actually click on it so you guys can see it. And it's pretty cool because you just type in, obviously, I'm pretty sure it's your name, and then there's a little text box. So we'll go down here and you can see our staff, latest updates, and there's questions. So we'll click on that one. Yep, and then you just provide your name, your email, if you want to provide the subject in which the question is based off of, the message, and then you just hit send. I'm not sure how long it would take for some of these guys to get back to you. I would assume probably not all that long, but of course if you have any questions you can always ask them. And so like I said, down here they have different websites you can click on. I actually thought that this was pretty interesting. Amazon's going to be trying something with educational resources. And so essentially this is an open educational resource. It's just trying to provide teachers and students with all the information they could possibly need to make sure that they don't get themselves into legal issues, as well as still being able to provide a good basic classroom. So to essentially sum this up within the classroom, be creative. No one likes a copycat. Don't just see something on the internet and take that at face value. Change it up so that you're not doing the same thing. Control the access of the information. Essentially, that, like I said earlier, you just are the one that actually deems what the students can see. And when in doubt, use basic public domain knowledge. And a great example of this is Disney. He does this, or excuse me, he used to do this all the time. And Disney can still do this. Anyone really can do this. The public domain is a bunch of content or material that anyone can use. A great example of this is The Brothers Grimm. It's a book. After a little bit of a period of time, Disney actually made a movie about it, but it doesn't have to be historically accurate to what the story was about. You could change it to be whatever you want. That's always a good basis to go on. The next section is ethical issues, and digital divide is a variety of different things. It can be socioeconomic status, race, gender, and a bunch of other ones as well. I just stuck with these three. So socioeconomic status is extremely important. It's essentially the uneven distribution of wealth among parents and obviously eventually the future children. And it really puts a damper on students' ability to gain advances in technology, because if their parents can't afford to pay for a laptop or a computer, then they're not going to be able to use it at home. So then the only access they will have to that type of technology is in the classroom or after school activities if they stay. And so it's extremely important that as a teacher you're aware of that. Race, again, it probably goes kind of hand in hand with socioeconomic status. The wealth distribution leaves most minorities with a disadvantage. And then again, like I said, that leaves them with the inability to use technology outside of the classroom, which gives essentially other students who can use that stuff a bit of an advantage over them. And then the next section is gender. And in the year 2000, or 2001, I believe, when the study was done, over 50% of girls were in the school, but only 17% were in Advanced Placement Computer Test A, and only 11% were in the Advanced Test AB class. And I'm not going to go too much into this. But I believe this was one of my book sources that you guys can take a look at. It doesn't seem to be working for the moment, but it should be working. So, ethical issues in the classroom. Make sure that you can try to have a created instruction that all students can use this. You don't want to create something that requires them to use technology outside of the classroom if more than half the class doesn't have the access to it. And of course, if that's the case, then you need to try to plan around that and maybe provide instruction time within the classroom with that technology and allow the students to do it that way. Obviously, you can try to have the students who do have access a little bit more time outside the classroom for different assignments than those who don't have the internet or the technology for it. Again, know who has the access to the technology, so that can be a simple survey just being like, hey, who has internet, or who has the laptop at home, something along those lines. And like I said, use the technology in the classroom. It's there for the students, and they're all learning from it. And obviously myself, I only grew up with some of these laptops in the classroom as I grew up. Even some of you guys might have even not had them growing up in the classroom, so it really just depends. All right, and now social issues, and this is acceptable use policy and cyberbullying. And the acceptable use policy is very similar to the fair use policy. The slight difference is that it actually pertains more so to the protection of the owners and the employees within that company or network. And it's simple. It sets the guidelines for what you should do when using the content. And I have this little article. And what I really like about this source is it gives you like straight examples. I'll go right to where. So for example, general use and ownership. As you can see right here, it says company name. That's essentially where you would insert the company name. And then as you go and read along here, it actually fills in the blanks of what you can do and what the third party should be doing. And of course, this article goes on for a little bit. And it even, what I really like about this as well is it also gives you an unacceptable use of the content that you should use. And essentially that means the violations of the rights of any person or company protected by the copyright, and etc. And you can't pirate any information, obviously. And essentially it's to protect owners and the employees. And this is used to prevent virus attacks, compromise of the network systems and services, because if you just start throwing out all this information, oh, this is where this is from, and it could lead to possible hackers or something along those lines. Obviously that's a little extreme, but it is a realistic possibility. Cyberbullying. Now, I've seen cyberbullying firsthand. Those of you guys who are using social media can fully be aware that it is a real possibility, and actually, it's probably more likely that someone will be cyberbullied than someone would be approached by a stranger on the internet for let's see. I think it actually said in this article, it said something along the lines of if a student is contacted or anyone is contacted by a stranger, it's least likely than if someone gets cyberbullied. So most of these I actually didn't go back and re-log in, but all of these will work for you guys. And so there's so much social media. I'm not even aware of all the social media. Like I don't use most of them, just the basic ones. And there's going to be so many that come out that it's going to be hard to keep up on that stuff. And it's important that you are aware of not only just regular bullying within the classroom, but that you're aware of cyberbullying. And if you see it via your social media, or if you hear it from someone, and it is very serious, report it. You have to report it to your authorities. Being the guidance counselor, VP, etc. The Center for Safe and Responsible Internet Uses is actually a source that this book references to use. There was a specific instance that it used where a teacher was aware of cyberbullying and got the parent involved, and that's actually where they went to gain some more information about what they can do to help get to the bottom of the situation. So I recommend that you guys go there as well if you want to. You don't have to, and use that. And within the classroom, just know the fair use policy. It's, like I said, it's very similar to the acceptable use policy. Just understand that you need to change up the information a little bit. You need to know what situation you're using it in and how much of the information you're controlling. Like I said, be aware of the bullying within the classroom and obviously outside the classroom. If you hear something or see something, you need to report it and try to keep it as best under control so that it doesn't get out of hand. And like I said, contact the authorities, your guidance counselor, VP, which will probably contact the principal if it does get that bad. And the parent needs to be aware. Obviously, you don't want the parent to get involved with the individual student it might be with, but you definitely need to get them involved and keep them informed. And then these are all my references. I appreciate your time, guys.